Okay, so get ready, because today we are diving into a story that proves that truth really is stranger than fiction.
Yeah, it's a wild one.
We're talking political reporters, we've got presidential campaigns, and a whole tangled web of relationships.
You know those relationship statuses on social media?
Hmm,
It's complicated.
yeah,
This is like the real life version.
that's a doozy.
Yeah.
And it all kind of centers around Olivia Nuzzi and Lizza, two big names in political journalism.
Mm-hmm.
They were engaged at one point,
Right.
but now throw RFK Jr. into the mix. He's currently running for president.
As one does.
And it's a recipe for a scandal. Everyone is talking about this.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to do today. Break it down.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts from the Daily Beast, Semaphore, New York Magazine, Vanity Fair.
Oh, and Fox News.
We've got Fox News in there too.
Okay.
Each one with its own little take on this very public breakup and the legal battle that came after.
Yeah, so let's start with the basics. RFK Jr. is running for president, and Olivia Nuzzi, who's a reporter at New York Magazine, she gets assigned to his campaign. Seems pretty straightforward.
Right, but here's where it gets a little messy. So Nuzzi, she's covering the campaign, and then she tells her editors that she's in a relationship with RFK Jr. himself.
Wait, she's covering the campaign and she's involved with the candidate.
Yeah,
Isn't that a conflict of interest?
that's a big one in journalism. You've got to be objective.
Yeah.
Any whiff of bias, it just throws everything off.
For sure, it makes you question everything else that they've written. So what happened when this came out?
Well, they put Nuzzi on leave while they reviewed her work to see if there was any bias. Okay.
They didn't find anything, but it's not a good look.
It just raises questions. Even if she wasn't biased, it's still like,
Sure.
Okay, so where does the ex-fiancé, Lizza, factor into this whole thing?
So this is where things get even more complicated. Right after the news of this relationship breaks, Nuzzi files something called a civil protection order.
What's that?
It's a legal order that's meant to protect someone from being threatened or harassed.
Oh, okay.
And she files this against Lizza.
Okay, so it sounds like it ended badly, but what exactly are the accusations?
So Nuzzi, she accuses Lizza of some pretty serious stuff.
Like what?
Blackmail.
What?
Hacking into her personal devices.
No way.
Even trying to plant bad stories about her to make her look bad.
Oh, wow. Basically saying he's going to ruin her career if she doesn't get back together with him.
Wow, that's intense. So what does he say about all this?
Lizza. He denies everything, calls her accusations completely false, and says he'll see her in court.
So we're left with two totally opposite sides of the story.
Yeah, and to make things even more complicated, Nuzzi, in the allegations, she only mentions that he used the matter as leverage against her. It doesn't ever say what the matter is.
So it's like, what could be so bad that it would lead to all this? Is it something to do with Kennedy?
That's the million-dollar question. Here's another twist. Lizza, he was working as a journalist at Politico at the time, and he actually recused himself from covering Kennedy's campaign before any of this even came out.
He did. Why? What was the reason?
He cited his connection to the story through his ex-fiancé as a conflict of interest.
Oh, interesting. So he recused himself before the accusations.
Yeah.
That's curious timing.
It is. So then it becomes a question of, well, what did he know and when did he know it?
Yeah.
Was he already aware of this relationship? And if so, did it play a role in his decision to step back from covering Kennedy?
Okay, so it's more complicated than it seemed at first.
Yeah.
And then, to make things even more interesting, Kennedy comes out and says that he barely knows Nuzzi.
Right. Which seems strange considering they were supposedly in a relationship.
Yeah.
But then there are these reports of a heated phone call between Kennedy and Lizza after the news of the relationship broke.
So wait, Kennedy downplays the connection, but Lizza felt the need to distance himself because of Nuzzi? Something's not adding up.
It's not adding up at all. It makes you wonder what's really going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And what the true nature of these relationships really is. It's like with every new detail, it just gets more and more complicated.
Yeah.
Doesn't
And it
it?
makes you wonder, like, what is this matter? What is this thing that he's supposedly using against her?
Right. Like what could be so bad
What is it?
that it leads to all this?
Yeah.
We can only speculate, but
Yeah.
it's definitely got people thinking.
Yeah.
Some people are saying maybe it's information about Kennedy.
Oh, something that could hurt his campaign.
Yeah, like something that Nuzzi told Lizza in confidence. But it could be something totally unrelated to Kennedy, right?
It's true.
Something from their personal lives that he's threatening to expose.
Right. We don't know.
You don't know.
It's just, it's messy.
It's messy.
And it's important to remember we're talking about accusations here. Nothing's been proven in court.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Both sides deserve to have their say.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the fact that this is all happening in public like this,
Right.
with such big names
Huge names in journalism.
and politics,
And politics, yeah.
it just adds this whole other level to it. You know?
Totally.
It's like a reminder that
It's a big deal.
what happens in your personal life can become public so fast.
Yeah, and especially these days with social media and everything.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone's got an opinion.
Exactly.
And it's all over the internet in seconds.
So, speaking of a big deal, this whole thing has really got people talking about ethics in journalism
Oh, for sure.
and conflicts of interest.
Huge.
You know, like how do you stay objective when you're personally involved with the person you're supposed to be reporting on?
Exactly. And it's a good reminder that journalists are human too.
Right. They have personal lives.
They've got their own stuff going on.
But it's tricky, right?
Yeah.
When those personal lives get mixed up with their work.
Absolutely. And that's where transparency is so important.
For sure.
If you've got a personal connection to a story, you got to be upfront about it.
Yeah.
And news organizations, they need to have clear rules about this kind of stuff.
Right. Like, what do you do when this happens? 'Cause
Exactly.
That's all about trust.
It is.
If people can't trust the journalists and the news they're getting, then what do we have?
Exactly. And this case, however it turns out,
Right.
it's a good example of how complicated things can get,
For sure.
especially in this day and age.
And it shows how fast information or misinformation can spread online.
Oh, it's incredible.
Like, people make up their minds before they even have all the facts.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we all need to be careful
Be careful about what we read
what we share.
and what we believe.
Exactly.
We need to think for ourselves
And be critical.
and get information from different sources.
Multiple sides to every story.
Exactly. It's like everyone's caught in this web of their own making.
Yeah.
And every time someone says something, it just gets more and more complicated.
And the thing is, this isn't just some tabloid drama.
Right.
This could actually affect the election.
Exactly. Because you've got RFK Jr. running for president with this whole thing hanging over him.
Right? It makes you question his judgment a little.
Yeah, like what was he thinking?
And is he really being honest about this relationship?
Right, because on the one hand, he's saying they barely know each other.
But then you've got Lizza recusing himself because of his connection to Nuzzi.
It doesn't add up.
It really doesn't.
And then there's that question of the matter.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Like, what is it that Lisa's supposedly holding over her?
It feels like that's the key to the whole thing.
Right. Like, if we knew that, we'd understand everything else so much better.
Exactly. Was it about Kennedy? Something that could hurt his campaign?
Or was it something completely personal?
Right. Something from her past that he's threatening to tell everyone.
It's frustrating not knowing.
It is, because without that piece, it's hard to really judge what Lizza was doing and why,
We're just left guessing.
basically.
But one thing's for sure, this whole thing has really made people think about journalism and politics in a different way. Oh, absolutely.
Like, it's a reminder that things aren't always what they seem.
And that even with all the information we have at our fingertips,
Right. With social media and the internet and everything.
it can still be hard to figure out what's really true.
Yeah, and it reminds us how important it is to be critical, to question what we see and hear.
And to get our information from different sources.
Don't just believe everything you read online.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, this isn't just about a relationship gone wrong, or
Yeah.
even about these accusations.
It's about trust
It's about being transparent
and being accountable for our actions.
in our personal lives and in these big institutions that shape the world.
Well said. And it's something to keep in mind as we move forward, because who knows what the future holds.
That's for sure, but we'll be here to break it all down when it happens. That's right. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.